are very specifically chosen such that you can move one f-stop and double or half your shutter exposure time. So the typical f-stops that you will find in the camera are designed so that if you double your shutter time, you can, or excuse me, if you double your exposure time, you have to move down one f-stop, and the amount of light that actually makes it to the imaging surface stays the same. This was really useful 30 years ago or even 20 years ago when everything didn't come with a light meter. Light meters! Light meters make it possible for me to take decent photographs. I am backing up. My only experience with photographs is spending the last 2 years running around with too much camera for my own good, shooting pictures of anything that got in my way. I've learned this all the hard way. I read a lot of theory. I read a lot of books. It didn't help. Playing with the camera with manual settings for 2 years, that helped. Light meter. Okay. It measures the amount of light entering the camera and landing on the imaging surface, usually without engaging the imaging surface itself. That varies based on modern cameras, but it's a detail we don't have to worry about. You point it at an object or a scene, it measures the amount of light coming in, and then it takes a solid guess at what settings the camera should be at. And then modern cameras let you change them because you say, no, I disagree. This is how automatic mode works on most digital cameras. You point it at the scene, you pull the shutter release, it looks at the scene, it figures out, here are the settings that will end up with X amount of light actually hitting the imaging surface. Okay, I'm going to shoot those. What I can do, and what most even moderate level cameras can do, is I can point it at a scene, half pull the shutter, it takes a guess, figures out what it believes is the right amount of imaging on it, right amount of light to hit the imaging surface, and then I can adjust it up and down for the amount of light, or I can adjust the balance of the ISO, the aperture, and the shutter speed. This is true of most mid-range cameras. I'm going to be honest, I only use Canon hardware, so I can't tell you anything about Nikon. I can't tell you anything about any of the other companies. And I use SLRs because I was young and stupid, and I picked up a big camera when I could. And it was worth it because I learned a lot the hard way. Okay, charging right along. Everybody advertises their zoom numbers. Everybody loves talking about their 100x digital zoom. I'd stay away from it. Stay as far away from it as you possibly can. Optical zoom actually plays with optical elements before it hits your imaging surface. Your imaging surface is the size of a postage stamp in most cameras. In mine, it's the size of a big postage stamp. Optical zoom, we run optics back and forth, sets up a different focal length on the lens, which allows you to put a different angle coming in and out of the lens onto the imaging surface. Digital zoom. Let's take your optical sensor. Let's take the imaging sensor. Let's cut a square smaller out of the middle of it and then scale it up to the full size of the image that everybody was expecting. That's digital zoom. C statement. Don't do this. If you can, shut it off. It's better for everybody. Yes. This is the Insert Nick Farr segment of today's program, who will not be attending this evening. I don't have one, but I hear camera phones are becoming very popular. Okay, everybody with a camera phone, pull it out right now and shoot a picture of me. Oh, wow! Shocking! Either nobody's listening to me at all and you've all fallen asleep instantly, or nobody here has a camera phone. Okay, we got one. We got one! Camera phones. You can get good pictures out of a camera phone. It is in fact possible. Be 4 foot away from your subject in blazing daylight. They work great! In all seriousness, they actually work great in that situation. In any other situation, you're going to get lucky, maybe. And while I'm talking about this, true with every camera system out there. More light, better. The more light you can put in an area, the happier you will be taking photos inside of it. Because this is dim. This is hard to work in light right now. It will get dimmer over the course of the night and will be much, much worse to work in. And this brings us, if I'm right, yes, to flash photography. So, flash photography, they're wonderful things. I hate them with a vengeance. In any given typical scene where you and I are standing, where's the light coming from? Light's coming from above. In flash photography, the light comes from the camera. So, if you will, whenever you shoot flash photography, the best way to think about it is, okay, I'm about to shoot a picture where the only light source is going to be a flashlight strapped to the top of the camera. Think of it that way. And then think about what your picture is going to look like. All the shadows will be cast straight back. Okay, that was not me. All the shadows will be cast straight back. The light source will be directly above, beside, or below the lens. This means that all the shadows that we are accustomed to, from the brims of our hats, from the concave of our eyes, all of those, flat relief. I like describing it as, it looks an awful lot like somebody got smashed through a cement roller, because that's what all the pictures look like after you shoot flash on them. All of the shadows that we use to describe depth or see depth aren't there. As an added bonus, it also turns the color temperature up, which I haven't talked about at all. Color temperature is one of the wonderful things that the human eye ignores, but digital imaging can't. Color temperature is what we see as the white point in a picture. This is actually, let's stare at these lights. These are white, we say. They're in fact quite yellow. But if you stare at, say, the screen off your laptop, the light coming off it is very blue. These things disappear to the human eye because we have this wonderful thing called the brain, and it processes the images for us and hides all of these little pesky details that we'd rather not deal with. The flash that is common with cameras is a very high color temperature and will come out looking very blue. So if you go back and look at a photo shot in this room of all of your smiling faces, right now, and I used flash, it will look wrong. It will look like we were all under fluorescent lights, when in fact we were under incandescent. Simple advice, don't use flash. So here's how you're going to do it. Sometimes you don't get a choice. Sometimes your camera doesn't have a high enough ISO setting. Sometimes your camera can't open its aperture up enough. Sometimes you can't hold the camera still for the 3 seconds that you need to collect enough light to get the image. Sometimes you want a low light environment like this one, and you want to freeze fast action, like somebody flinging something across the room, and you just want to get it leaving their hand as opposed to blur. That's a time for flash. Sometimes you need to see the detail of the object you're looking at. If I'm taking pictures of a circuit board that I'm going to be dissecting via looking at the image and figuring out what the chips are on it and how they're arranged, I don't care that it doesn't look like the lighting environment it was shot in. I want to be able to read the numbers on the board. Flash is perfectly acceptable. Social cue. Believe it or not, I have pointed my camera at a group who wanted their photo taken, shot their photo, and walked away, and they got pissed at me. They didn't see a flash fire. They thought I was ignoring them. So, in this case, if you're doing something like that, my advice is to take 2 pictures. Stand there, take a picture of them without flash, then pop your flash up and shoot the same picture again with flash, and they'll say, "Oh, thank you," because they will now have known that you actually took their picture. It works. I don't understand why. If you're going to use your flash, and I recommend everybody does on occasion, go out and shoot a whole lot of pictures with it and without it to find out how it will work. Flashes are only effective out to a certain range for certain settings on your camera, specifically ISO. The flash that came on my camera is only good to about 15 foot on ISO 100, but it's good all the way out to 75 foot at ISO 1600. Yes, you're looking at me like I'm out of my mind. I will show you the manual if you don't believe me. I'll show you the pictures if you don't believe me.
Anything closer than that is going to be terribly washed out.
Bright white splotch. That's it. See the picture of Colonel in the program for an example.
Probably that the flash is at 1/r squared.
Yeah, exactly the problem, which is why if you're shooting with flash that's on board, you need to figure out what the ISO setting is for the distance you're working at. And you will find that you will, for what seems like normal distances where you'd be using a very high ISO for a low light environment, you have to turn your ISO down to 100 to get the flash to work right, to get an image that doesn't suck, for lack of a better term. If you're going to regularly use flash, almost every camera, even the little tiny ones that are that big, come with a hot shoe on the top which you can strap a flash onto. Yes, this means that you'll end up using a flash that's perhaps 4 times the size of your camera. But if you're shooting flash regularly, it's worth it. I use a 30-year-old flash that's external to my camera if I'm doing actual flash photography work. 30-year-old flashes still work, and they still sync with the same cables that exist today. Okay, now we get to the very short artistic section of today's program, because I know squat about doing this. Rule of thirds. Stare through your viewfinder. Draw a line 1/3 of the way vertically, 1/3 of the way horizontally. Put your subject at one of the intersections. It looks better. Don't ask me why. I don't understand. It works. I'm dead serious. But other thing to remember, you can always crop the image down. You can never get more context around the subject. Shoot a picture. You're always going to be able to say, okay, I don't want this edge, and throw it away. But you're never going to get more context. Oh, crap, I wanted to see the house he was standing next to. You're not going to get it. You get one shot at pictures. So you got to actually collect what you need that one shot, because unless you happen to be a major motion picture studio, you can't recreate reality at a whim's notice. The other thing I know a lot of people like to do is take a picture that's square on with their subject. Everybody looks like they're having their mug shot taken when you do this. The trick is to take a picture off center to the subject, because we look at people and we don't see them square onto their face all the time. But when you shoot a picture of somebody and they're looking at you, it comes up square and you see them dead, and it looks like there's a mugshot photo going on here. Best trick I've come up with: if I want a picture of somebody and they don't know it yet and they're looking somewhere else, yell their name and shoot the picture as they're turning to look at you. It works. Bits are cheap. Use lots. Really, bits are recyclable. If you don't like the picture you shot, throw it away, take another. In fact, better action, shoot a lot of pictures and then throw away the ones you don't like. This is what I do. If you have a camera that immediately will give you immediate feedback as to what the picture you just shot was, set it up to do this. Point it at a subject, shoot the picture, look down at it, see if you actually liked the result. If you didn't, don't immediately delete it, even though that's what you feel the need to do. Don't delete it immediately. This may in fact be the best shot you're going to get. You don't know. If you don't like the image, stand up, shoot another. Change your settings a bit, shoot another image. If you're like me, or even with any of the modern cameras, Bunsen, you know this, how much can I get half a gig of flash for now?
A couple of months ago it was about $60 after reviewing.
Yeah, okay, $60. Okay, you can get a gig of flash for $60. For me, a gig of flash is 400 pictures at one step below RAW, as in fine JPEG massive. That's 400 pictures. I can sit there and I can shoot all day and not delete a thing. And this way you don't throw away the one good image that actually you wanted because you didn't think it was good, and then the situation went away.